Okay, so what we're going to do in this video is give you an introduction to the ARPA, or the Automatic Radar Plotting Aid. And essentially, this is replacing the paper plot that we've been doing. It's happening automatically. That's how it gets the name. Okay, so we're going to introduce you to some new features in the radar now. It's actually not radar. It's an additional processor inside the unit that does this. Okay. So it's separate from the radar, but it takes the data that the radar is, obtaining, okay, and then it processes it further, okay. So first thing we got here is that here's our radar screen. We got our 5 targets, okay, and what we want to do is we want to get some information about their CPA, the time of the CPA, true course, true speed, all those kinds of things, and we're going to use the ARPA to do it instead of plotting by paper. Let me just show you what your interface is going to be with the ARPA controls, though. We're going to be up here. We're going to be using this vector screen, okay, and we're going to be able to switch between true vectors and relative vectors, and we're also going to be able to adjust the time of the vectors, okay. We're going to be working in this AZ area. This is auto zones or acquire zones. We're going to be working in this Arpa menu here, and we're going to be working in trial, okay. But the first thing I want to show you is that here we have our 5 targets, and the first thing I want to do is I actually want to acquire the targets, okay. So by doing that, what I do is I hover my mouse over and I click on it. I'm left clicking, and that little box shows up, and that is now going to be designated as target 1. And I click over here, and that's target 2. This will be target 3. This will be target 4. This will be target 5. This will be target 6. And what I'm doing here is I'm manually acquiring targets. Okay, and in the process of doing that, what I'm telling the ARPA is, hey, I want you to track those. Now, as we're looking at this, there's still just these boxes, and you're gonna find out in the lecture. But the ARPA is based on it takes past information. What was the vessel doing in the past period of time? And it says, well, if it was doing that for the last 3 minutes, this is what it'll do in the future. Okay, so it's right now what's happening is that the ARPA is collecting data on all those targets. And after about 1 minute of collecting data, it's going to start to produce vectors, okay? And those vectors are going to be similar to what we've been drawing. Okay, you can see right there, target 1, a vector just popped up, okay? And in just a few seconds, the rest of them are going to pop up some vector. Okay, there's target 2, okay? Target 3, this one should go next. Target 4, okay, this should go next. 5 and 6, okay. So those are the vectors there. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pause the simulation for a second. Hold on. Okay, so we got our vectors now, okay, and let's just talk a little bit about our vectors. I manually acquired each target by hovering over it and left clicking. Now we want to talk about our vectors. So the first thing we have is we have relative vectors and we have true vectors, okay. Now these relative vectors are showing us essentially that they're the equivalent of RM in your radar plot, okay? Remember we were doing this radar plot and we had RM, and that line, okay, we were always doing it in 6 minutes, but that line is the relative motion line, okay? Well, this over here on our radar screen, okay, this, because we're in relative vectors right now, this is a relative motion line, okay? But you remember when we were plotting, we also plotted the true vector, EM, them, okay, and I can do that on the radar as well, okay. So I'm going to minimize that, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So I come up here and I change my relative vectors to true, and look, everything changed orientation because this is now EM. That's what they're actually doing, okay. And I can switch back to relative vectors, and this is the relative motion line, okay. So based on the past motion of that target in us, looking at this, man, it looks to me like this vessel is going to have a CPA of about 0. Okay, and if I switch to true vectors, I can get an idea. Oh, this vessel is going south. This vessel is going southeast. This vessel is going east. This vessel is going southeast. And if I look at that right now, I'm in 6-minute vectors, so I can adjust the time of these as well. I can adjust them all the way up to 59.9, which is basically 60. Whoa, look at that, okay? Or I can bring them all the way down. The minimum is 0.1, which is basically nothing, okay? So a lot of times you might be in 6 or 12, you might like 10, but you're going to change these based on what you want, okay? But anyway, so this is true vectors, and that is the equivalent of EM. That's what those vessels are doing, okay? And this is relative vectors. Now, the beauty of the relative vectors is it's collision avoidance. If the vector is headed right towards me, we're on a collision course. Check this out. I can jack up my vector time to get a better idea, and you might even say, oh, this target 5, it has a CPA of looks like nearly 0. Let's find out the exact CPA. I can keep turning this up, okay? Whoa, okay? And it looks to me like it's actually not, it's going to pass just ahead of us a little bit, and that's going to be in about 55 minutes, okay? So this is very useful, okay? It's a very useful tool, all right? And so I can see that this one right here has a CPA of 0. This vessel's on our starboard bow. It's the stand-on vessel. I'm very concerned about this one. This guy over here, this is the they're a giveaway vessel for us, but anyway, you get the idea. Okay, so those are my vectors. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring these down a little bit. Okay, bring them back down to, let's say, I'll put them on 6 minutes. That's something we're all comfortable with, I think, after all these labs we've done. Okay, now, what else do I want to do? So now, right now, this is another area that we're going to be interested in for the ARPA. This is called the target information box. And right now, we're getting information about target 6. Okay, so target 6 is this guy right here. And it's telling me, oh, the range to target 6 is 8.9 miles, and the bearing is 128.6. And it's saying, oh, the CPA is 1.8. Okay? The CPA is 1.8. So that's just like, you know, if I had drawn RM and drawn the line on my plotting sheet, I would have gotten a CPA. And here's the TCPA. Well, instead of me walking it down with my dividers, okay, like we were doing, the computer is doing all that. The ARPA is doing all that. So I've got a CPA of 1.8 miles in 30 minutes. You know, I'm not terribly worried about target 6, okay? And its speed through the water, oh, it's telling me, oh man, its speed through the water is 0.1 knots. That's telling me it's probably dead in the water. But what if I wanted to know what target 1 was doing? Well, what I can do is I can come over to target 1 and I can click on it. And when I do that, oh, I got to start the simulation again. Hold on. So here I am. Here's target 1. When I click on target 1, okay, now in the target box, I've got target 1. And this, oh man, look at this. The CPA is 0 in 30 minutes. It's making 0.59, okay, at about 13 knots, okay? And it's going to cross my bow at about, it looks to me like it might, yeah, well, if its CPA is 0, it's not really going to cross my bow. It's going to hit me. But anyway. Okay, so if I want to know what target 2 is doing, I can click on target 2, and now I got the data on target 2. Oh, the CPA is 2.2, time is about 30 minutes. Okay, it's going to cross my bow at about 2.2, about 2 miles. It'll cross my bow at about 30, in about 30 minutes. And I can go up here to target 3. Okay. And I come over here to target 4. Oh, target 4, no relative motion. That seems to me same course, same speed. I'm making 140 at 17. I think that's probably what that one's doing as well. Let me go, boom. Yep, look at that. 140, 17. Here's target 5. Okay? So what else can I do over here? Well, what if I want to look at multiple data on multiple targets at the same time? I can right-click and I can go multi-target by CPA, and the ARPA is now going to order them, okay, by target number, but it's going to sort them by minimum CPA. So target 1 will have a CPA of 0.2 miles in 28 minutes. Target 5 will have a CPA of 0.4 miles in 53 minutes. And so this will be the closest CPA, and this will be the farthest CPA. And, you know, I can organize it by range if I wanted. So what is the closest target? What is the farthest target? Okay, and I can also do that multi-target user where I can put them in any order that I want. But you're going to probably be in this one mostly because this one is the one that you're most interested in. Is it orders them by how close they're going to be. Okay, so now The next thing I want to show you is how you can manually unacquire a target. So you can say, you know what, I'm not really worried about this guy. I don't want the clutter on my screen. Okay, so I can right click and that unacquires the target. Okay, so if I right click on any one of those targets, it unacquires them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to reacquire that by left clicking though. And now the ARPA will take about a minute to give me a vector. And then, but it has up to 3 minutes to really give me a solid vector. Anyway, okay, great. What I want to show you now is I want to take you through just a quick tour of the auto acquiring zones, the ARPA menu itself, and trial feature. Okay, so it turns out that you know, we had manually acquired all these targets, but the ARPA could acquire them themselves. So the first thing I want to do is I want to unacquire them. Okay, so I'm going to right click on each target and I'm going to get rid, well, essentially what I'm telling the ARPA is don't track it anymore. Okay, now there's another way that I can cancel all of them together, but I'm not going to show you that just yet. I'll show you that a little bit later on. Okay, so here we are. I've unacquired all my targets. I've deleted my targets. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on this AZ, this auto acquire zone. And now I have this menu and I'm going to have two zones. So right now, neither one of them is on, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit them. So when I click on this, boom, you see these two zones show up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set those. Okay, I can set the size and the shape of those, and if any target shows up inside of those, the radar is going to automatically acquire it. Okay, so right now there's nothing in either one of those. The radar won't acquire them. Okay, I can change the shape of these things a little bit. Okay, let me just edit 2. Okay. So here we go. Here's 2. All right. And now I'm going to turn it on. Okay. I'm going to turn 1 on and I'm going to turn 2 on. Okay. And now you can see the ARPA is acquiring, it just acquired that target. Any target that wanders inside that zone, the ARPA is going to pick it up. So in 1 minute, I should get a vector for that. Now, since all these other targets are not in those zones, I'm not going to have targets for those. But let me edit target 1. I'm not gonna acquire them, but now let me bring this out, okay? And there we go. All right. Now it acquired all those targets. Okay, so this is pretty nice because the ARPA will start tracking them and it'll start to give us vectors for them. Okay, so that's a very nice feature. All right. We'll talk more about that. You'll get more experience with that. Let's go ahead and turn these off. Okay. All right, and now I'm going to exit guard zones. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into the ARPA menu itself. Okay, these are all ARPA functions. So by the way, here you go. Here are my targets. Okay, those were acquired automatically. But see this there, this GZ alarm? What it's telling me is that there is a target in there that is acquired in the guard zone, and it's telling me that, you know what, this might be a target I'm a little bit concerned about because there's an alarm going off. So let me just show you some of that stuff I'll talk about next. So what I want to do now is take you into the ARPA menu. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, and I have my ARPA data is on. If I was to click that, I would lose all my vectors. Okay, so I can turn that off. You see it turns everything off. I turn it back on. Okay, now I'm going to have to, okay, they show up again. So if I want to suppress them so that, you know, I can, you know, if I feel like I got a lot of clutter going on my screen and I want to just see the targets without the ARPA stuff, I can suppress them temporarily. Past positions we'll talk about later on, but that puts a little dot behind the vessel that shows where the vessel has been. That's quite useful sometimes. It's kind of like trails, but a little bit different. AIS data, we'll do this in a different week, but I can actually superimpose AIS data onto the targets on the radar if I have AIS data. And this is telling me I'm now tracking 6 targets. But the thing I really want to show you right here is, by the way, if I click cancel all targets, all these targets, I'll lose them simultaneously. Okay? But so I can manually acquire them or manually unacquire them. I can also cancel all targets all at the same time. But this is what I want to show you now. Limits and settings. Okay, so this is a very useful thing because the ARPA, not only can it track targets, but it can let us know if there are targets that we think might be dangerous, and it can alert us and set an alarm. So in order to set that alarm, I have to set some limits and settings. So when I go into this, let's not worry about this stuff right here. Let's just jump right into Cpa Tcpa limit. So right now, I can set this to any number. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to a number that is a distance, and I'm also going to set it to a time. So what this is going to do is going to say if I set this to 2 miles, okay, and I set it for 10 minutes, the ARPA will give me an alarm for any vessel that is going to come within 2 miles of me within the next 10 minutes. So it looks like to me like there are no vessels that are going to come within 2 miles in the next 10 minutes. But I see this vessel probably going to come much less than 2 miles, so how come the alarm isn't going off? Well, it's because it's going to be greater than 10 minutes. What if I jacked up this time here? I'm going to put it up to, let's say, 40 minutes. Okay? Oh, okay. So as soon as I change the time parameter, all these targets, every one of these targets is going to come within 2 miles of me. Okay? So I'm like, well, 2 miles, 2 miles is quite a distance. I'm not too worried about that. Maybe I'm going to be worried about only vessels that are going to come within half a mile of me. Now, when I change that, okay, there's only one vessel that's going to come within half a mile of me in the next 40 minutes, and that's target 1. And I get an alarm. Cpa Tcpa, the radar is telling me target 1 is going to be within half of a mile sometime in the next 40 minutes. And that is very useful, okay? So I can change these parameters. And by the way, this is my bow cross limit, time, distance, and time, okay? So maybe I can adjust those two. I don't want to get too far into those right now, okay? Great. So now we're going to exit limits and settings. We're also going to exit ARPA, and I want to show you now you know what I'm going to do? I want to go back into those limits and settings. I just want to check what did I leave those at? Limits and settings. Yeah, half a mile. I don't think 40 minutes. I'm not so interested 40 minutes out. Maybe I'm interested about 20 minutes out. Anybody who's going to be a half mile in about, let's say, 20 or 30 minutes. It would depend on what kind of situation I was in. If I was in open ocean, I'd want these numbers higher. If I'm in close quarters situation, like in a harbor, I'd want these numbers to be lower. We can talk about that later on. Okay, so now, the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you this trial, okay? Trial is a very useful feature. It's a what-if feature. It's kind of action-reaction, okay? It actually is action-reaction. So if I activate this, because I'm saying to myself, you know, this vessel's on my starboard bow, it has a CPA of 0. I want to alter my course to starboard, and I want to make it have a CPA of about, let's say, 1.5 miles or 2 miles, and I want to see what that's going to do to other vessels as well. So I click on this trial, okay? And, I got to get out of limits and settings. I got to get out of ARPA. I'm going to click on this trial. And now I'm going to set a what if. So right now I'm doing 140. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a different course. Oh, this will be my new course to avoid. So let's say right now I'm doing 140. Let's say, what if I came to 190? How would things happen? So I'm going to adjust this to 190. Okay, and that's great. All right, so I'm going to adjust my course to 190, and I'm going to leave my speed the same, so I'm not going to adjust that. Now, this delay is kind of like I'm setting my MX. I'm going to do that in 3 minutes, okay? And now let's see how that's going to impact all the targets. Okay, I turn this on. Now, you see how everybody bent? Okay, so but first of all, a T comes up down here. This is saying I'm in trial mode. I'm no longer in real tracking. I'm in a what-if kind of situation. And now, this is giving me a hypothetical situation. If in, it's 2.5 minutes or so, I altered course to 190, this is what would happen with all the relative vectors of all the targets, okay? So it's like, wow, hey, you know what? It doesn't look like I'm on a collision course with anybody anymore. So here's something useful that I could do. I could turn on my VRM and I could set it to, let's say I want to set, what course should I change to be just exactly 2 miles? So there we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my vectors, make them a little bit longer, okay? And now I can play with my course and figure out exactly what course I should alter to so that I have no vessel come within 2 miles of me, okay? And it looks like if I alter my course to around 180 in about 2 minutes, that vessel will just break my 2 mile CPA. So I can make it, let's make it like 1.8, okay? And this is a very useful feature for you to figure out if you're going to, what course or speed you should alter to. Okay, and we'll come back and look at this in greater detail with future lab. So now I'm going to get out of, I'm going to turn my trial off, okay, and I'm going to get out of trial. Oh. So now I'm going to turn my trials off, okay, and I'm going to get out of trial. Okay, and now I'm back into the real life situation, and this T went away. Okay, so now I'm back to actually tracking my targets in the real world. No more hypothetical. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my vectors, bring them down a little bit. Okay, and I just want to show you past position, and then we're going to finish this video. So I'm going to go into ARPA, and I'm going to turn on past position. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to adjust it to, I'm going to do 30 seconds. Okay. So that we can kind of see something very clearly here. But what's going to happen now is that every 30 seconds, the radar is going to drop a little white dot wherever the target is. All right? And we'll be able to see those over time and get some idea of how the target is moving. Okay? So we have to let this, actually, I'm going to put it, I'm going to make it the shortest interval possible, 15 seconds. All right? So it's going to take just a little bit of time to see them. You can already see. I restarted it over, so we have to wait. So you can see that the ARPA is dropping a past position dot, okay, every 15 seconds. And by the way, it's only, I think it only will put about 4 of them on the screen at a time, okay. And then it, you know, when it gets to the 5th time, it'll drop the first one and add the 4th one, okay. It'll kind of do that sequentially. But now you can see that these are actually indicating relative motion, all right. And the beauty of this is that, you know, remember when we were using trails, if you changed your range, like if I turn my trails on now, okay, if I change my range, the trails disappear. But watch this. If I decrease my range, the history stays, okay? All right? So I don't lose the history when I change ranges, which is an advantage of it over trails, because every time you change range with trails, those disappear. Anyway, that's a little introduction to the ARPA. I hope you got something out of it. And we'll be talking about some of these features in the lecture. And hopefully we'll be developing some labs for you that we can do virtually. And you'll be able to learn more about these features before you go out and ship next. Thanks.